Tonight, accused killer Rowan Dennis attends his Olympian wife's funeral, flanked by their children and ushered in through a back door.
A search and rescue mission ends in tragedy. An Adelaide man found dead in remote Queensland.
A freak summer downpour turns roads into rivers in the state's far north.
Our trip to an Adelaide Hills playground ended in horror for a mother and her daughter.
Adelaide shoppers ripped off by scammers using some of our biggest companies.
And exclusive access inside Adelaide Oval for day one of the test. We're live to the ground.
Live from Adelaide, 7 News with Rosanna Mangiarelli and Will Goodings.
Good evening. The family of champion cyclist Melissa Hoskins has come face to face with her accused killer husband at an emotional funeral service.
Rowan Dennis sat with the couple's 2 young children as Melissa's devastated father paid tribute to his beloved daughter.
Holding his 2 young children, Rowan Dennis arrives at the funeral for a woman he's accused of killing, his own wife, Melissa Hoskins.
There should have been more. There's not going to be more, but we are left with a lifetime of memories.
On a day of unimaginable grief, this is a family seemingly divided. Melissa's loved ones greeted mourners out the front. Their son-in-law was directed to enter quietly through a back door. When Peter Hoskins delivered his eulogy, he made no mention of the man charged with killing his daughter in a horror New Year's Eve crash in the affluent suburb of Medindi.
Melissa was not just our daughter, she was a sister, a granddaughter, a wife, a mother to Oliver and Madeline, a niece, part of a close collective of cousins, and a friend to so many people here and abroad.
At an emotional service in Melissa's hometown of Fremantle, the young mother was laid to rest in front of hundreds of mourners. At just 32, she was in her prime. 2 little children aged just 2 and 5. An Olympic cyclist herself, her marriage to world champion rider Rowan Dennis cemented them as cycling's golden couple.
She was sassy, she loved music, she loved to dance and had a zest for life few people enjoy.
Police allege 33-year-old Dennis was behind the wheel of his ute when it struck and killed his wife just metres from the couple's multi-million-dollar home. He's facing serious charges, but for now remains on bail, caring for his son and daughter.
We're celebrating a life today that was cut way too short. Melissa was just warming up. Her best performances were yet to come. You give me so many reasons to be proud of the woman you have become. And just so proud to be able to tell others that you are my daughter, always.
A young family with the world at their feet now shattered. 2 children without their mum and their dad facing years behind bars. Elspeth Hussey, 7 News.
A young South Australian worker has lost his life in terrible circumstances, succumbing to the harsh outback elements after his car became bogged.
Lauren Rose joins us live. And Lauren, he'd left his vehicle on foot Sunday morning to try and find help.
He had, Will, and sadly, after a huge land and air search, his body was found 12 kilometres from it late yesterday afternoon. This is the incredibly remote and unforgiving southwest corner of Queensland where the 25-year-old got into trouble. He worked in the gas fields for Condor Energy. Today, the company's CEO said it extends its deepest condolences to Cameron's family, friends and loved ones. Its thoughts and prayers are with them during this incredibly difficult time, and it's working with local authorities to understand the circumstances surrounding his tragic death. Cameron had been travelling in convoy with a 39-year-old woman from Brisbane, but after half an hour of walking, she turned back and waited by the cars. She was eventually found by a passing driver, physically uninjured.
Thank you, Lauren. There have been extraordinary scenes at Andamuka in the state's far north, where flash floodings turned the town's main street into a river. Children on school holidays have enjoyed the downpour that's transformed the Outback mining centre.
The water was very strong. It kept getting stronger and stronger, we could feel. So I just laid on my back and let the water take me somewhere.
And we went down the main street and it was just completely inundated with some water. So we let them swim for about an hour.
In the past week, Andamooka's had nearly a third of its annual rainfall.
It's been revealed an overseas driver charged over the deaths of 3 people in the state's mid-north is an Italian tourist on his honeymoon. The 3 locals killed were all members of a well-known and much-loved family.
Gabriel Cairo has travelled the world,
Ibiza,
documenting his extensive adventures with his new wife, Elena Peroni. But that was in happier times. Today he faced court charged with 3 counts of causing death by dangerous driving. The pair was on their honeymoon when tragedy struck. 28-year-old Cairo was behind the wheel of a camper van which collided with a Honda near Lochiel in November. 84-year-old Cynthia Clark and her 54-year-old daughter Jackie died at the scene. Cynthia's husband John was airlifted to the Royal Adelaide, but later succumbed to his injuries. The crash happened at the notorious intersection of Blythe and Templeton Roads, the elderly couple well known in the mid-north. During the short court hearing, the magistrate was asked to adjourn the matter for 8 weeks, not the usual 14 sought by the prosecution, because the accused is an Italian citizen on a tourist visa. Cairo's lawyer has requested an interpreter fluent in Italian be made available at the next hearing, as his client's command of the English language is limited.
Of course he's devastated about the whole matter. It's just tragic for everyone involved.
Cairo had nothing to say outside court. He remains on bail until his next appearance in March. Deanna Williams, 7 News.
Well, it may have been the windies on a Wednesday, but more than 26,000 South Australians have rolled through the gates for this summer's test. Among them, veteran patron Mick Weatherald, who's now seen the last 60 at Adelaide Oval.
As the flow of fans pondered the day's play, their only certainty was this man in the stands. Mick Weatherald's now seen the first ball of the last 60 Adelaide tests, right back to the Ashes in 1959.
With typical Adelaide gusto, the crowd welcomes Peter May and the England players as they come out on the field.
I remember seeing a 17 or 18-year-old Tendulkar play a test here, and there might be a West Indian who could be the next Tendulkar. That's why you come to first days, to see what, they might have.
Young fans.
Aussie, Aussie, Aussie! Oi, oi, oi!
Forever fans.
I've been coming here probably every year since I was 16 years old, and I'm now nearly 60.
Birthday boys.
50 today.
Even a pig. If you love cricket, you're loved here.
All the way from down northern suburbs of Adelaide.
Even if you won't be asked to sing the anthem.
Will you be my girl?
But what Aussie fans really wanted to hear was the sound of crashing Windies wickets, and today there were plenty.
From Cummins, Hazelwood, Stark, and finally Lyon. The Aussie Arsenal always seemed a class above. This lone Windies fan,
and the Windies!
An easy target.
I think that actually hate me more than you was from Melbourne.
As the Aussies look to stitch together another series win. Tom Johnson, 7 News.
A shoplifter who allegedly threatened Aldi staff with a knife has been arrested at Kilburn overnight. Police were called around 8 p.m. when a woman allegedly tried to leave the store with a trolley full of items, some taken from Kmart in the shopping centre. She dumped her trolley and fled, but officers arrested her nearby on Kintore Avenue. The 28-year-old's facing a string of charges, including aggravated assault.
The slabs have been laid on the first of hundreds of new homes going up in an Oaklands Park redevelopment. More than 200 affordable townhouses and units are being built to alleviate housing stress in the southern suburbs.
The shovels go in on a much-needed housing development. 680 homes and townhouses will be built over the 16-hectare Oaklands Green project. Around 250 new homes will be handed over to Housing SA. The site was previously home to 200 Housing Trust properties.
This is a long-awaited, much-welcomed project.
An estimated 16,000 South Australians are on the public housing wait list and another 3,000 are in insecure accommodation.
We have clients coming in for the first time saying, I was happily housed in a rental accommodation, my landlord came and increased my rent by 50%, my power's gone up by 30%, my groceries are up by 20%, I couldn't afford to stay in my house.
The Hutt Street Centre says it's helping a record number of people return to housing, what it calls homefulness.
Last Tuesday had our record day of 187 clients in the centre.
Work began on the Oaklands Green last month, and it couldn't come soon enough.
This mixed-purpose neighbourhood will contain hundreds of families in great amenity, good quality housing.
Residents are on track to start moving into the new homes in September, but the entire mammoth development will take 8 years to complete.
There are a lot of people who want the smaller option these days without having to worry about gardens and whatever.
A long wait ahead for a chance at the more modern Australian dream. Hayden Nelson, 7 News.
Office workers were forced to flee their building when a car caught fire in an underground car park in the city's southwest corner. When firefighters arrived just after 12:30 this afternoon, the Mercedes convertible was well ablaze. Witnesses say they heard a loud explosion before thick smoke flooded the street.
Yeah, I saw three ladies running from the, clutching the handbags, running from the driveway. They ran out and then we heard boom and smoke was just going everywhere.
Yeah, it's scary. Yeah, the fire spreads like crazy around here.
The Mercedes was the only car in the garage at the time. The fire is being treated as suspicious.
There are vaccines for influenza and COVID, and soon Australians at most risk from another highly contagious respiratory infection can protect themselves. A shot for RSV has just been approved for use, but for now it's only for the over 60s and you will have to pay for it.
Pam Patterson has never breathed the same since contracting RSV.
I was really sick. My lungs never recovered from that.
Kate Vines says it was the worst virus she's ever had.
I wouldn't be able to talk for more than 2 or 3 words before I started coughing.
Both were high risk, with no vaccine available to them at the time.
RSV can cause serious illness in the older population, leading to poor quality of life, hospitalisation or even death.
The medicines regulator has now approved a preventative jab for those over 60. Until it's listed on the National Immunisation Program, it won't be free, costing up to $300 through a private prescription.
We know it's contagious and we think it's gone up since COVID because people have been mixing and crowding together much more.
RSV symptoms include a runny nose and sneezing, coughing or shortness of breath and a fever.
More than half of RSV cases last year were among children. Infectious diseases experts hope a separate vaccine, already approved in the US, will soon be available for pregnant women, giving newborn babies protection as they grow up.
We want the antibodies from mum to be able to spread to bub as well.
Angelique Opie, 7 News.
There's been a promising response from international candidates looking to become SA police officers as the big recruitment drive ramps up locally. The government say so far nearly 60 people have applied from the UK, Ireland and New Zealand, with hundreds more registering for information sessions.
These are people with extensive history and extensive experience as police in other jurisdictions. They know exactly what it takes to be a cop.
The first international cadet training course is due to start mid-year.
Penny Wong has heard horror stories of Hamas kidnappings from the families of hostages. The Foreign Minister is in Israel tonight, where the war is having an increased impact on global trade and could start pushing up petrol prices.
On the Red Sea, Houthi militants attacking cargo ships is causing the Israel-Hamas war to impact globally. Tonight, after another attack on a US vessel, energy giant Shell, the latest to stop sailing the route.
A danger to the global economy and global shipping. Australia has a real national interest in that.
Shipments diverted around Africa can take 20 days longer to reach Australia, tonight threatening pain at the pump.
In the short term, we certainly would expect to see a small rise in petrol prices. It's definitely something that we'll need to monitor over the next few weeks.
US defence officials today retaliated to Red Sea jitters with new strikes on militants shooting at ships.
We anticipated the Houthis would continue to try to hold this critical artery at risk, and we continue to reserve the right to take further action.
102 days after Hamas fighters stormed into Israel, Australia's Foreign Minister heard hostage horror stories from heartbroken families.
I'm really profoundly grateful that you are willing to speak with me.
Australia's diplomatic visit
means the world to us. It means that we are not alone.
Senator Wong has made it her mission here to push for a pathway out of the conflict with a focus on the humanitarian crisis in Gaza. She's pledged more than $21 million in aid for humanitarian services and refugees displaced by the war. But with fighting impacting global trade, Australia could be under new pressure to do more than deliver aid. In Tel Aviv, Ashley Mullaney, 7 News.
China's ambassador to Australia is calling for closer military ties between the two nations as a way of building real trust. But in the same media appearance, he denied China's Navy was responsible for a sonar attack on Australian divers.
Raising a glass to a new year.
Cheers.
And high hopes for a stronger China-Australia relationship.
We expect something more. Move beyond stabilisation.
China's ambassador confirming trade bans on Australian wine are on track to be removed in the coming months.
It's bloody good wine.
But major differences remain. Xiao Sen rejecting government accusations a Chinese warship blasted sonar pulses at Australian Navy divers in waters off Japan last year, causing minor injuries.
They didn't initiate the so-called sonar. It will cause immediate fatality.
Pointing the finger at a Japanese vessel nearby.
It's a ridiculous position from the Chinese government.
We stand by the representations that we made.
The diplomat also warning the Prime Minister not to get too close to Taiwan's newly elected leader.
This is an issue very sensitive in our bilateral relationship.
Beijing's willingness to compromise on trade not extending to the island it views as its own. The ambassador saying the issue shouldn't hijack stronger ties with Australia. One way, he says, that can be achieved is by resuming joint military exercises as a way of building up more trust between the two countries.
If you have trust between two militaries, you do have the real trust.
It's very hard to trust another military when they've injured your divers deliberately.
Rob Scott, 7 News.
Mexican cycling star Isaac Del Toro has taken out stage 2 of the Tour Down Under. Cycling fans were out in force at Nord this morning before riders took off for the hills. The conditions today much kinder for competitors and spectators.
The thermostat's been turned down a little bit, so a bit cooler. Yesterday was pretty brutal, so it's nice to see a bit of cloud cover.
The Tour heads to Tea Tree Gully tomorrow, the first time it's featured in the race in more than a decade.
And now let's check in with Soda, who's at Adelaide Oval, on what's coming up in sport.
And Soda, the Aussies are well in control after day 1 of the first test.
Yeah, certainly are. Well, very, very good with the ball, although there was some really nice things for the tourists to get excited about, including a first ball to remember for a Windies debutante. Plus, sometimes you need to go backward to move forward, a role change for a forgotten crow. And in the world of tennis, Adelaide's own Thanasi Kokkinakis wins a thriller at Melbourne Park. All that and plenty more coming up shortly here from Adelaide Oval.
Look forward to it. Thank you, Soda. A mother and daughter are lucky to be alive after being struck by a giant tree branch at an Adelaide Hills playground. That story is coming up next.
Also ahead, more evidence of bogus discounting by the major supermarkets.
An MP forced to resign, caught on camera shoplifting from a number of upmarket boutiques.
And fast food and streaming service customers fall victim to a new hacking scam. What you need to know.
An Adelaide Hills mother says she and her daughter are lucky to be alive after being struck by a falling tree limb. While the little girl escaped unhurt, her mother's leg was broken in 3 places and she'll have to learn to walk again.
In a full leg cast in hospital is not how Anna Francis Wood expected to end a fun day out.
I just heard this massive sort of cracking noise and I just felt my leg snap like a twig.
The Mount Barker mum had taken her 4-year-old daughter to the new play area at Keith Stevenson Park on Sunday when the branch of an enormous gum tree fell some 8 metres directly onto them.
I just saw her getting crushed by the tree branch and she started screaming.
It did just drop at no notice. There was no looking even that the tree was a bit, sick or weak. It just went.
Gabrielle's son and husband were also underneath, the two kids pinned under the foliage.
It was really one of those scary realisation moments that, if she had been slightly one way, that easily could have been a lot worse.
Arborists say our recent drastic weather changes can distress trees, causing them to drop their branches. But he says it's entirely unpredictable.
Trees don't fail that often. They rarely hurt people. Very likely to be a freak accident.
Anna was taken to the Royal Adelaide, where she's since undergone surgery. Doctors say she snapped her leg in 3 places and will need to learn to walk again. Mount Barker Council has reached out to her and has reassessed the safety of all trees at the playground.
Trees are part of the reason why people move to Mount Barker, and we want to protect that for our community and ensure that everyone's safe.
The single mother's friends have set up a fundraiser to help her on her long road to recovery.
My prognosis is still to be determined as to whether I'll be able to walk properly again.
Kimberly Pratt, 7 News.
Pressure is about to ramp up on supermarket executives under scrutiny over alleged dodgy discounts. Chain bosses will have to front up and explain their pricing decisions at roundtable talks tomorrow as the consumer watchdog considers suing for misleading shoppers about so-called specials.
On supermarket shelves, not everything is as it seems.
Coles, this doesn't make sense. One for $1.55 or 2 for $5.30.
Shoppers are peeling back the curtains to reveal sneaky specials tactics.
What you're about to see isn't 100% legal.
On this occasion, a Woolworths spokesperson said it was an honest mistake. The ticket underneath it in the video shows a previous discount that hadn't been removed by our store team. But according to the ACCC, it's an industry tool. It's called Was Now pricing, when a business ups the price briefly so any sale appears generous. The consumer watchdog could sue the supermarkets over it.
It can be difficult for an individual to exert their rights. That's why this action by the ACCC is really important.
The federal government could also grant it greater power to tackle price gouging.
The states are also set to apply pressure to the supermarkets. Queensland Premier Stephen Miles will meet with bosses tomorrow to understand why costs are coming down but prices are still rising.
I've seen some of their explanations, but I really want to interrogate that and get into the detail.
Jodie Lee, 7 News.
A New Zealand MP has been forced to resign after being caught on camera shoplifting from a number of upmarket boutiques. Golriz Garaman stole items worth thousands of dollars, including a designer handbag. The 43-year-old, who's the country's first refugee elected to Parliament, has taken full responsibility, claiming work-related stress caused the out-of-character behaviour. She hasn't been charged.
All right, let's head back to Adelaide Oval, where Gertie joins us from the Village Green.
And Gertie, the crowd's looking quite tame, considering it's been a big day.
Rosanna, compared to our day-night Adelaide test, there's certainly a different atmosphere out the back here this evening. Some seem to be winding down, others look like they're about to head into the city and kick on. The good news is, though, the line-up to the Pims tent is relatively short at the moment. Now, around 26,000 spectators attended the first day of the test. We are expecting a similar crowd again tomorrow. The festivities will no doubt ramp up as we near the weekend, with plenty to keep the masses entertained on and off the pitch. The weather's also set to heat up too. More on that later this hour. Back to you, Will.
We'll catch you later on, Gertie. Customers of the country's biggest fast food and entertainment companies have been caught up in a hacking scam. Tonight, how to protect your credit card details.
Also from court to campaigning and back again, why Trump's legal woes are only fueling a surge in his popularity.
Australia's first smart ear, how computer power is reinventing the hearing aid.
And it's the size of 3 New York cities. The world's largest iceberg is on the move. A man's recovering in hospital after being impaled on a metal fence at Woodville Gardens overnight. It's understood he was trying to get back into his housing trust unit just before midnight when his left calf was pierced by a sharp spike on top of a post. One of his neighbours held up the injured man until paramedics freed him before taking him to hospital.
Thousands of customers of big Australian companies have been targeted in an online hacking scheme, with some losing hundreds of dollars. This time, criminals used already released passwords. The Prime Minister tonight promising to take action.
It's called Credential stuffing. Criminals buy stolen login details from one website
in the hopes that you've reused those same usernames and passwords all over the place.
Then, using hacking software, access online retailers.
And then have got like saved credit card or gift card information on these other accounts.
15,000 Australians are among those targeted in the latest attack, with accounts for alcohol store Dan Murphy's, Mexican food outlet Guzman and Gomez, streaming service Binge, and home shopping network TVSN.
A lot of, household brands that, are targeted purely because they're so popular and they're used by so many people.
Scammers were also discovered bragging about their purchases online.
Criminals are in it for the money, so they will keep doing this.
Dan Murphy's has told 7 News that of its 5.3 million customers, fewer than 100 have been affected, and stressed it was not due to its system being compromised. TVSN has issued refunds for unauthorised transactions. The Prime Minister says he's investigating further measures to protect Australians from this growing threat.
This is a scourge, and so many vulnerable people being ripped off who've acted in absolutely good faith, and we need to make sure that they are protected.
Jennifer Beshwati, 7 News.
A New York architect accused of killing sex workers and dumping their bodies on a Long Island beach has been charged with a 4th count of murder. The 60-year-old's accused of strangling the women and dumping their bodies more than 15 years ago. In total, the remains of 10 sex workers have been found.
The world's largest iceberg is on the move, travelling through the Southern Ocean for the first time in more than 30 years. The glacial mass first broke away from the Antarctic coastline in 1986 and is nearly 5 times the size of Canberra. It will eventually break apart as it drifts towards warmer waters.
Donald Trump was back in court today, accused of defaming a woman he's already been found guilty of molesting. But rather than hurting his prospects of re-election, it only seems to be helping.
Hot on the heels of his historic victory in the Iowa caucus,
the largest margin of victory in GOP history. Is that good?
Donald Trump was in a New York court, a brief appearance before he was back on stage, this time in New Hampshire.
I go to a Biden witch hunt, and then I come here in the afternoon and I stop.
Today's case, he's being sued by a woman he was found liable for sexually assaulting because he called her a liar. But this courtroom campaign pivot is working.
The landslide victory shows that Republican voters, at least here in Iowa, are not deterred by Donald Trump's mounting legal battles that include 91 criminal charges and accusations he worked to overturn his last election defeat.
I think in some ways the indictments will increase his popularity.
I think what he's been charged with is absolute bull.
New Hampshire is next to decide.
We are going to win on Tuesday at a level that maybe could even be bigger than what we just did last night in Iowa.
With Trump all but set to claim the Republican presidential nomination, old rivals are already squaring off.
Crooked Joe Biden, he's a crooked guy. He's the worst president in the history of our country.
I'm still the only person to ever beat Donald Trump, and I'm looking forward to do it again.
Preparing for round 2.
I think people off the street can do better than these two guys are doing right now.
In Des Moines, Iowa, Miley Hogan, 7 News.
Artificial intelligence is reinventing the hearing aid. We'll show you how. That's ahead on 7 News.
Plus, Australian scientists discover why some women are more prone to breast cancer.
A popular prune juice pulled from shelves after turning alcoholic.
And the AFL's oldest fan, who recalls the 1925 grand final. Australian researchers are one step closer to better preventative treatments for breast cancer patients in what's being called a milestone finding. Their 10-year investigation looked into why 70% of women carrying faulty cells develop the deadly disease. They've discovered they're only found in carriers of the BRCA2 gene mutation. Researchers are hopeful it will help find new treatments for those wanting to delay surgery.
Bottles of prune juice have been recalled after traces of alcohol were detected due to the fruit accidentally fermenting. Customers are being urged not to drink from the 1 litre Sunraysia prune juice bottle, which has a best before date of December 4, 2025. It was sold at Coles and Woolworths across the country.
From the office to the road, artificial intelligence is changing our way of life, but the Albanese government fears it could be dangerous. Tonight, it's considering new laws to regulate the technology and keep businesses in check.
Built to look like humans, robots have learnt to sound just like us.
Trust is earned, not given.
Artificial intelligence ensuring humanoid bots and driverless cars.
Where would you like to go today?
Exist outside of science fiction.
I think we're at the dawn of a new age. We've had the computer age, we've had the internet age, we're now in the AI age.
AI is expected to tip $600 billion into the economy each year over the next decade. But the Albanese government knows Australians are wary.
I think what people are concerned about is that the technology gets ahead of itself and has an impact on people's safety.
The government now working with business to develop AI safety standards and labelling, but they will only be voluntary.
We really need to adopt perhaps a more aggressive approach here to make sure that we are protected.
Unfortunately, the industry minister's talking about a possible voluntary code, something that might happen in 2025.
The European Union is taking a tougher stance, banning some high-risk uses.
Where there's personally identifying information, I definitely think we need guardrails.
The government will also implement a number of mandatory regulations, but no date has been set for when. The minister promising.
The days of self-regulation are gone.
But how new laws will work remains unknown. Isabel Mullen, 7 News.
Well, now for a check of the day in finance with Angela Cox.
Yes, investors here reacting to the US Fed hosing down hopes of aggressive rate cuts from March and disappointing economic data out of China. The ASX 200 closing down 22 points. Real estate stocks, particularly sensitive to interest rates, were among the worst performers. The energy sector also down. The Aussie dollar has fallen against the greenback, buying less than 66 US cents. Oil prices fell slightly, surprising given the unrest in the Red Sea. And new figures show a slump in new housing, with only 37,000 dwellings started in the September quarter, a drop of 10%.
Thanks, Ange. Australia's oldest footy fan, Jean Reynolds, today celebrated her 108th birthday. Jean is a lifelong Cats fan. She went to games well into her 70s and now watches every Geelong match on TV. Last season, she in fact came second in the tipping comp at her aged care facility. No substitute for experience, I guess.
Too true. Good on you, Jean, and happy birthday. Well, sports up next. Let's go back to Adelaide Oval.
And Soda, records tumbled on day one of the first test.
Yeah, absolutely, guys. The Aussies very good with the ball. Our own Alex Carey popped up with a great milestone as well. Also coming up, we're going to have all the highlights, including a dream debut for a Windies quick. Plus the Demon and an Aussie surprise packet storm into the third round at Melbourne Park. And a rising Adelaide basketball star moves closer to realising her Olympic dream.
He's triumphed with the Aussies across the world and stars for our strikers. Now, Adelaide's Alex Carey reports to you on 7 News.
I'll take you inside the summer of cricket on 7 News.
Alex Carey takes the catch. Inside the Big Bash, inside the tests, Alex Carey, exclusive to 7 News.
Hello again from Adelaide Oval, where the Aussie bowlers have dominated on day one against the West Indies. Pat Cummins and Josh Hazlewood both took 4 wickets, but it was a Windies debutant who led a late fight back and put his name in the history books.
A green theme for the first day test at Adelaide Oval in 5 years.
So there's a little bit of grass on the wicket and have first use of it.
Pat Cummins becoming the first captain to bowl first in Adelaide since 1981. Cameron Green would have to wait to bat at 4, but not at Gully.
And gone! Cameron Green back in the side, back in the action.
And arguably our greatest ever Gully fielder.
Cummins then knocked over his counterpart before Josh Hazlewood picked up his 250th test wicket.
Shot off it.
It brought the first of 3 Windies debutants to the crease. Cavum Hodge looked the part, as did Kirk McKenzie at the other end. But Hodge would soon be dislodged.
He does not drop him, Cam Green.
McKenzie brought up a well-deserved 50 and Alex Carey's 100th catch.
And gone. Superb bowling from Hazlewood.
In the city of churches, the Aussie fans were all singing from the same hymn sheet that a Windies collapse was now a shoo-in.
Good cricket, Australia. Terrible cricket, West Indies.
At number 11, former security guard Shamar Joseph.
Ouch. That's a welcome and a half to Test cricket.
But Joseph would fight fire with fire and along with Kemar Roach put on 55 for the 10th wicket. All out for 188, the Aussies should have been 1 for 4.
Edge and dropped.
A reprieve for Khawaja, no such luck for his new opening partner Steve Smith. Joseph becoming just the 23rd player in Test history to take a wicket with his first ball. He got Labuschagne for 10-2 in a dream debut. Green and Khawaja took the Aussies to stumps, trailing by 129 runs. Tom Wilson, 7 News.
Well, the Strikers will face the Scorchers in Perth in a knockout final on Saturday night. The venues for the Big Bash finals were locked in after a thriller between Perth and the Sydney Sixers last night. Moses Enriquez winning it on the final ball.
A historic win. And they get it! Magnificent Moses! What a win for the Sydney Sixers!
The win gives the Sixers a double chance. Let's get on to tennis now. In Adelaide's Thanasi Kokkinakis is through to the second round at the Australian Open after winning a 5-set thriller against Sebastian Offner. Alex de Minaur is already into the third round after he made light work of his opponent today.
Matteo Arnaldi had already knocked off one Aussie, the Demon, on a mission to make sure it wasn't 2.
That's 206k on the serve. That is all the speed you need.
A Demon demolition in straight sets.
I'll happily take that result. Saying that, I think the match was still a lot tougher than the scoreline showed.
Roof closed, but a storm brewing inside John Cain Arena.
Oh, I've got it.
It took Storm Hunter 6 attempts to win a first-round match. She needed just 1 to win a second. Last night, 2 Aussies went the distance and are still standing. Thanasi Kokkinakis beat Sebastian Offner in 5 sets in more than 4 hours.
Sometimes I struggle for motivation during the year, but January in the Aussie Open definitely isn't one of those times.
While Isla Tomljanovic climbed off the canvas to claw past Petra Marcic just after midnight. Brett Thomas, 7 News.
Of course, forward Elliot Himmelberg could be about to follow his brother Harry's lead and move into defence. After a failed attempt to join the Giants during the trade period, Himmelberg might find a new home in Adelaide's back 6. The 25-year-old trained in that role at West Lakes this morning, while ruckman Riley O'Brien was back on track for the first time since having appendix surgery. Rory Sloane and Wayne Miller are up their workloads on the way back from hamstring injuries. And Mexican young gun Isaac Del Toro caught his rivals napping today to become the second youngest stage winner in the Tour Down Under. 20-year-old Del Toro pounced in the closing stages of today's 141k leg, which went from Norwood to Lobethal, and he claimed his first ever pro win and the leader's ochre jersey.
I don't know what I want to say. It's so much.
Yeah, nicely done. Now, tomorrow's Stage 3 race is from Tea Tree Gully to Campbelltown. And Adelaide basketball rising star Izzy Borlase will make her debut for Australia at next month's Olympic qualifying tournament in Brazil. The 19-year-old's been starring for the Lightning here locally, and she's going to play a vital role as the Opals look to qualify for the Paris Games. Her Lightning teammate Steph Talbot remains a chance to go to her third Olympics despite missing the squad as she continues to rehab from a serious knee injury. And meantime, in the NBA today, Josh Giddey had 9 points as the Oklahoma Thunder went down to the Clippers by 11.
Now with 70 in this opening quarter.
And in Philadelphia, Joel Embiid had 41 and the 76ers got the better of Nikola Jokic and the Nuggets in a battle between the last two NBA MVPs. Well, that's our look at sport from down here at Adelaide Oval. Now, still more cricket to come on 7 tonight. The Thunder up against the Renegades straight after home and away, and the Test match continues tomorrow morning with the Aussies looking very nice indeed, Rosanna and Will.
They sure do. Thank you, Soda. Now, wearing a clunky hearing aid might soon be a thing of the past thanks to impressive technical advances.
The latest models not only restore hearing using artificial intelligence, but connect with your phone and laptop and even provide live language translation.
Josephine Carey hasn't been able to hear properly since birth.
So if you don't have hearing aids, it's very hard to hear someone. You have to actually work harder to listen, lip read. It's very, very difficult to function.
3.6 million Australians live with hearing loss and its effect on communication and thinking.
If we are putting up with hearing loss, the ear is not sending vital sensory signals to the auditory cortex. The brain's going to degrade.
This device is set to help, the Smart Ear. The Genesis uses artificial intelligence to fill in the gaps produced by years of hearing loss.
85 years and older is the fastest growing age group.
It analyses audio signals 80 million times an hour for a more normal sound. But there's more. It can track your location, count steps like a fitness app, connect to a phone or laptop, and provide live language translation. You can even talk to it.
We have built in a personal assistant into the hearing aid. You can simply double tap and ask a question.
Then listen to the answer.
One extra innovation, these devices can also detect if the user has a fall and send an alert via a dedicated app. Not just a hearing aid, but an emergency beacon.
For hearing aids, for hearing impaired people, it's a no-brainer.
Not cheap though, $3,000 to $6,000 per device. Angelique Opie, 7 News.
Well, Gertie's back right after the break with the marathon skiers on a 560k trek.
It's warming up a touch for day 2 of the Adelaide Test. I'll have the 7-day forecast live from Adelaide Oval's Village Green.
Tomorrow on Sunrise, a new era of phones is here. Your first look at the mobiles where inbuilt AI is changing everything.
Plus, an exclusive announcement from one of the world's biggest bands. See you in the morning.
A Modbury Heights family has lost everything.
7 News doesn't just bring you the news.
Hit by a train at North Adelaide.
This is where news breaks.
Arson attack at a Huntfield Heights home.
Know your suburb.
Boyd in Blackwood.
Know Adelaide.
Hailed in McLaren Vale.
Know the news on 7 News.
For Adelaide's latest news and more, tune in to 5AA Breakfast tomorrow morning.
For more on the weather now, let's head back to the Village Green at Adelaide Oval.
And Gertie, after a mild start to the test, it's warming up again.
Rosanna will be back in the mid-20s tomorrow. Today, a mild and partly cloudy day for the first day of the Adelaide Test. Today's top was 21.2 degrees. That was cooler than expected. And overnight, as that cool change arrived, a band of showers pushed across the city as well. The West Terrace gauge notched up just under 7 millimetres of rain in total. And right now, it's 19 degrees in the city. It was a cool day for most across southern parts of the state, with showers across the southern agricultural area as well. It reached 21 in Clare and Kingscote, 24 in Renmark. A trough that was triggering thunderstorm activity in the far north is now pushing across the eastern states. The low driving the cool conditions will soon be overshadowed by a high pressure system. Interstate 33 for Brisbane, a possible shower with a top of 30 for Sydney. Becoming windy in Melbourne, 21's the top. Showers increasing in Hobart, partly cloudy and 28 for Perth. Back home, isolated showers and thunderstorms are a chance about the far northeast. Looking hot and sunny for most though. 34 for Coopedi, 33 for Roxby, 36 for Maree. Further south, a mostly fine day. It could be a bit of a drizzly morning about the lower southeast. 25 for Ceduna, 24 for Whyalla and Clare, 26 for Port Augusta, 27 for Renmark and Kadina, cloudy and 19 for Victor, 23 for Kingscote, 20 with a shower or two for Mount Gambier. And there's a strong wind warning for the lower southeast coast. In the city, down to 13 degrees overnight, 24 is the forecast top. The cloud cover should burn off throughout the day. On metro waters, south to southwesterly winds tending south to southeasterly in the evening with seas to 1.5 metres. Looking ahead, mostly sunny and 28 on Friday, 34 and sunny on Saturday, 30 on Sunday, 33 Monday, partly cloudy and 38 on Tuesday. Wednesday, a shower's possible, 29's the forecast top. And before I go, let's take a look at tonight's ray of sunshine. A 560k trek's hard enough, but what about on a set of skis along the River Murray? That's what a group of keen water skiers will be doing from tomorrow morning. They'll start their roaring mission in Renmark and finish in Wellington on Saturday afternoon, raising money for Lionhearts Learning, supporting children and families impacted by cancer. And if you'd like to help with their fun
for you throughout the evening.
From all the Adelaide 17, for now though, it's good night.
Good night.